एकम् अक्षरम् हृदि निरन्तरम् भासते स्वयं लिख्यते कथम् हृदयकुहरमध्ये केवलं ब्रह्ममात्रम् यहमहमिति साक्षात् आत्मरूपेण भाति हृदि विषमनसा स्वं चिन्वता मज्जता पावनचलनरोधा आत्मनिष्ठो भवत्वम्। देहं मृण्मयवत् जडात्मकम् अहं बुद्धिर्न तस्यास्त्यतो नाहं तत्तत भावशुक्तिसमये सिद्धात्मसद्भावः सोऽहं भावयुतः कुतो वरधिया दृष्टात्मनिष्टात्मना सोऽहं स्फूर्तितया अरुणाचलशिवः पूर्णो विभाति स्वयम् सोऽहं स्फूर्तितया अरुणाचलशिवः पूर्णो विभाति स्वयम्। Namo Ramana. In this the Thursday satsang from Ramanacentre Center for Learning. As usual, we'll be reading verses from Guruvachaka Kovai, the work by Muruganar Swamigal. Each verse reading, there will be 2 verses. Each verse reading will be followed by a short meditation on its meaning, and that shall be followed by a practice session of 10 minutes. After these 2 segments of verse reading, meditation on its meaning, and the practice of Atma Vicharam are completed, there will be summing up remarks by our President, Dr. Shardaka, and that shall be followed by an offering of Sri Ramanastotram chanting by Vaibhavji and Pratnam. We commence this evening satsang by going to verse number 450 as the first verse selected for us. This occurs in the segment investigation into truth. The other two main segments are meditation on the truth and experience of the truth. This verse 450 occurs in the subsegment truths that should be thoroughly mastered. Truths that should be thoroughly mastered. The verse is followed by a selection from Muruganar's writing, note by the authors. So we go into the verse. He who is steadfastly focused in the heart will not see anything as the ground, the substratum, except his self. He who is steadfastly focused in the heart will not see anything as the ground, the substratum, except his self. He who is that screen like reality which exists and shines will provide the space for everything to appear within him, and he will also cause these appearances to shine. So, this is a fact or this is a truth that has to be understood and incorporated in the practice of the sadhana given by Bhagavan. He who is steadfastly focused in the heart will not see anything as the ground, the substratum, except his self. He who is that screen-like reality which exists and shines will provide the space for everything to appear within him, and he will also cause these appearances to shine. There is a note by the authors, as I said. This is Muruganar's original version of this verse. He who is steadfastly focused in the heart will not regard any other thing as the ground, the substratum, except his self. Much less will he see the one supreme existing ground that apparently ripens into space as three different places. That the one ground, the change made by Bhagavan is in the second part, where Bhagavan wants the sadhaka to identify with the self, whereas Muruganar is describing the the space objectively there. So that objective reference has been changed as subjective absorption, where the sadhaka who understands that the ground is only the self has now got to abide in that screen-like reality, the self, and give space is the meaning given by Bhagavan. So the authors are saying the change has been made by Bhagavan to shift from treating the self as an objective space, even in taking it as a step or truths to be incorporated. The word translated here as place is the same word that is used to denote the three different persons in grammar: first person, second person, and third person. One could therefore translate this Muruganar's verse in such a way that it indicated that one who is steadfastly focused in the heart is only aware of I. In its original form, this verse seems to be linked to verse 748, which is about time. Those who are firmly anchored in the state of the self will only see the self and no such thing as time. Much less will they see the one principle that apparently ripens into time as three different times. Bhagavan's rewriting of the second half of the verse 450 introduced an idea that was so different. The two original verses no longer make a symmetric pair. So the authors are saying the change that Bhagavan has brought about, that from the Muruganar's verse, brings about a change that 450 is no more a symmetrical pair with 748, but leaving those discussions apart, going into the Meaning of this verse: he who is steadfastly focused in the heart will not see anything as the ground, the substratum, except his self. What is the substratum for any situation? A situation considered within inverted commas favorable, a situation considered within inverted commas unfavorable, the whole of the waking, the whole of the dream, the whole of the deep sleep states. What is the adhara for this situation or for the states? It is only the Atma, it is only the self. As we go in the enquiry, we find that each time we hold the self, that shows that it is the Adhara. If we take Ulladu Narpadu, Bhagavan starts with time, நிகழ்வினை பற்றி இறப்பெதிர்வு நிற்ப நிகழ்கால் அவையும் நிகழ்வே. The past, present and future, the past and future are dependent on the present, and the present arises holding the self. So all the three times are dependent on the self. Namandri naaledu naaledu. Without the self or apart from the self, leaving the self apart, can there be time? Can there be place? So whenever I thought about time, oh, how much time is it going to take for me to reach where Muruganar has reached? Immediately one should ask, for whom is this thought of how much time it is going to be? Then the Atma to me. The Atma becomes the substrate for the whole of time, the whole concept of time. There is this Atma which is the substrate. When am I going to have darshan in so and so temple? When the thought comes, in that place which is 500 kilometers away, for whom is this thought, if we ask? Then for the concept of time, that Atma which we are holding becomes the substrate. So to the real seeker in Bhagavan's path, the Atma is the substrate of favorable circumstance, unfavorable circumstance, the whole of waking, dream and deep sleep. This becomes the substrate and nothing else is the Adhara, the ground. Once that is clear, what is the relationship between the sadhaka and the substrate? The sadhaka is merging himself in the substrate, merging herself into the substrate by asking, who am I? For whom this frustration about time is there? How much more time am I going to take to be like Muruganar Swami? For whom is that frustration about time? It is for me. Who am I? Takes me to the Atma, which is the substrate of the whole field of time. Now, what is the relationship of the sadhaka? The sadhaka, by asking who am I, is merging into the ground. He is one with the ground. Once we have identified with the ground, once you have identified with the screen, what is the anubhava? Bhagavan says in the second line. He who is that screen-like reality. He is not referring like the earlier verse where Muruganar Swami will say, such a one will not mistake that one primary substance became these three. He is referring to the Or Mudale Mummudalai Nirkum. That kind of misunderstanding that one substance became all these three, that will not be there is the reference by Muruganar Swami. It reference to place as well as time. But Bhagavan changes it. How does he change? Verse 450 is that he says, by identifying with the screen, by he who is that screen-like reality which exists and shines. What is the difference between the screen and the appearances? The appearances are lit by another light, but the screen is self-luminous. The Atma doesn't need another light to make it shine. So when the sadhaka, who was a reflected light, is now merged with the screen, the Atma, the anubhava is that all these appearances, he who is that screen-like reality which exists and shines, provides space for everything to appear within him. When he sees something embarrassing, when he sees something, some terrible thing happening, the one who is holding Atma as the substrate doesn't move from that substrate, because the whole story of life, whether it is the most villainous character or the most compassionate one, all have a space in me. None of them are to be rejected as such and such a one. Perumal Swami has no place in this Atma. No such thing. That is why the inward look, it is the Adhara for all appearances, good, bad, in between, everything. Such a one does not say that this particular thing, it does not belong, it should not have happened, it should not be there. Such and such a good person should not have died. Birth and death, appearance and disappearance, fire and water, all these have a space in the self-luminous space, self-luminous screen. He who is that screen-like reality which exists and shines, will provide the space for everything to appear within him, and he will also cause these appearances to shine. Such a one alone is the light with which those appearances shine. Now, there was a time about 15 years back when I was traveling by train from Chennai to. It was a sudden journey, so was traveling by the unreserved compartment. I was, because the seats were not there, and I like to stand by the door. I was standing there. So during the first half of the journey, there were about 4 people who were seeking alms from others. One was without an eye, and one was deaf, and one could not speak, and one had some other disability. But they all had methods by which they could seek the alms properly, and they all gathered the alms and had gone their ways. There was one gentleman who was lying in the place where I was standing. There was this corridor like thing. He was lying. He had some mental disability. Though he was also an alms seeker, he had some mental disability, and he could not gather the alms. So at the midway point or slightly after the midway point, there was a Kadlapuri person who was selling this churmuri, and I could find, since that was closed compartment, there was no channel to go. All the other 4 alms seekers collected the churmuri, 15-20 rupees worth churmuri, and they were having. Whereas this person was still lying there. He could not get the churmuri for himself. So what I did, I felt that he is particularly worse off. He is particularly worse off than the rest. The one who is mentally disabled is more worse off than the others, because they had the mental ability to gather. So on that logic, I got the churmuri for him and had the churmuri myself and gave to him. But that particular thought kept me unidirectional in seva of mentally unstable or mentally difficult people, those who have placed themselves in mental difficulty. I was put into seva. But in one point of my journey there, I could quickly understand that it is life itself who has created me also there. I am not capable by myself. I am also part of life. So life has provided a person who could see that and provided the churmuri to him. So when I came to that point in my journey, the screen-like quality becomes complete. That there is no character there that is not supported by the screen. The screen is there for every character. I had left myself out in calculating, and I was the judge and jury, and I was feeling that this particular person, with all logic that I had, he was particularly disabled. So I had to be, that thought put me, whether it is rightly or wrongly, in that particular seva for some time, till in Atmavicharam I could work out that for that person also, life has provided some other person who could see and who could provide for him. So life, the screen, is the screen for everything. Not a single bit is out of that. And one learns to abide in that screen-like quality, the self-luminous self, which is the adhara for everything and which lights up everything. With Bhagavan's immense grace, let us practice Atma Vichara, which takes us continuously on the path to that self-luminous screen which lights up everything and is untouched by any happening. Let's sit in Atmacharam for 10 minutes. Revathi will be able to set the time for us. Or is it Ujjwal? Thank you.
ॐ नमो भगवते श्रीरमणाय।
Namo Rama. We go ahead to the next verse selected for us. The verse number is 995. This verse is in the segment experience, Anubhava of the truth. 995, we find in the subsegment the state of being like a baby. The state of being like a baby, verse 955. There is also a quote from Talks with Sri Ramana Maharshi, the verse 995. Only those pure children, jnanis, in whom the perversity, the mind, does not arise at all, are fortunate ones. Only those pure children, jnanis, in whom the perversity of the mind does not arise at all, are the fortunate ones. This is because the joy of playing around, sitting in the lap of the Divine Mother, the fountain of happiness, without ever leaving it, belongs exclusively and completely to them. Only those pure children, jnanis, in whom the perversity, the mind, does not arise at all, are the fortunate ones. This is because the joy of playing around, sitting in the lap of the Divine Mother, the fountain of happiness, without ever leaving it, belongs exclusively and completely to them. The quote from Talks: Mr. G.V. Subramaya, a devotee, has written some short poems that are interesting, which are interesting. Some of them refer to a child. Sri Bhagavan said God becomes a child and vice versa. That means that the samskaras are yet latent in the child, thus its innocence is incomplete. When they are eradicated, even a grown up man becomes a child again and thus remains God. So, it is not childish but childlike. The jnani is not childish. In children, the samskaras have not yet started flowering, and in some children, it takes some time. Their ego doesn't get formed at all for quite some time. The samskaras don't. They live for merely food and the primary senses. That's it. Their ego is not yet formed. Whereas the jnani has completely erased the perversity called the mind. Manasam tu kim marganai krite naiva manasam. The mind is not there. Such a one is living in the lap of God. But back to that after completing this reading. The author said, that is G.V. Subramaya says, the child creates the home atmosphere. So for the child, everywhere is the home. You can find those children in whom the self is not yet formed. Wherever they go, they start repeating their normal place. They don't differentiate between one place and the other. Bhagavan said, yes, the children are always at home. We too are there, but are dreaming and imagining that we are outside the home. Later he added, I have rendered the word youth, yuva, in Dakshinamurti Stotra as child, bala. This seems more appropriate while translating Dakshinamurti Stotram that Vruddha Sishya Yuva Guru, instead of saying that Guru was a Yuva, Bhagavan has translated it as Bala and says that that is more appropriate than Yuva because the samskaras are not present in the Bala. To be reborn is to become the child over again. One must be reborn by gaining jnana, that is, recovering the natural state. So it is a verse that is simple but very profound. Only those children, pure children, jnanis, in whom the perversity, the mind does not arise at all, are the fortunate ones. Manasam tu kim margane krite naiva manasam. Not a single thought is pushed and created by the samskaras, because all the samskaras are dried and gone. When that complete removal of mind is there, then that state is described in this verse as how Subramanya is living in the in the muddy, in the lap of Parvati, Parvati Amma. That is the seat of consciousness. This is because the joy of playing around, sitting in the lap of the Divine Mother, the fountain of happiness, in that uncontaminated purity of consciousness, that is the fountain of happiness, where not a glimmer of thought or samskara is there. The jnani is in that, he is ever present, he is ever abiding, ever identified with that. Hence, he is like that child. To others, he may seem as though he is also doing what the others are doing. But for him, for whom the mind is dissolved, the ego is dissolved in that pure consciousness, he is ever living in the lap of the Girija, the Mate, Parvati Amma. That lap is the fountain of happiness, the bliss, where the mind is not there. Without ever living that state, this state belongs exclusively and completely to them. To whom does this fountain of happiness, the lap of the Divine Mother, belong? Only to the one who has completely dissolved the mind in that pure consciousness. Now, that dissolution of the mind happens when we do what that verse says, Manasam tu kim margane krite. When a thought arises, should not pursue it and reinforce the mind. Rather, one should let the mind go, the thought go, and even if that thought is not there, are you not there? You are there. The thought that arose, you are letting it go. It is not there anymore. It may be of the worst problem, it may be of the greatest thing. It is not there, but you are there. Consciousness is there. That is the practice of Atmavachara. Even if the mind is not there, your existence is not removed, cannot be removed by anything. Your existence is untrammeled. It cannot be touched by mind. It cannot be touched by breath. It cannot be touched by the senses. You are that pure existence which is untouched by any of this. Where the mind does not exist, that is where you are. That is who you are. That is what you are. And abide as that innocent child, the pure jnani. Then forever one is living in that exclusive place which belongs to those who have demolished the mind, destroyed the mind, or in that space where only consciousness is there, only self is there. With Bhagavan's immense grace, let us consciously become the innocent children and make ourselves eligible for that exclusive domain of fountain of happiness, the lap of the Divine Mother, the pure screen, that ocean of limitless consciousness, that ocean of unconditional love, the ocean of eternal existence, which is the self. With Bhagavan's immense grace, let us sit in practice of erasing the mind, of letting it go one thought at a time. One thought at a time, but keep at it. Ajya dharaya srota sasana. Keep at it without break. Manadin uruvai maravadu usa. Without break, keep inquiring into the form of the mind, the nature of the mind. The mind vanishes, and one gains that pure childlike quality of being eligible to play eternally in the lap of the Divine Mother. With Bhagavan's immense grace, let us sit in practice of Atma-Ucharan for 10 minutes. Ujjalji, you can set the time for us. Thank you. Namo Ramana. I request our President, Dr. Shardaka, to give us the summing up remarks. Namo Ramana.
Namo Ramana. Prostrations to Ramana, shining as a self in all beings. There is a song, many songs of Sadhuam Swami, wherein he talks of being the child on Bhagavan's lap. In fact, the very beautiful translation in Kannada is also there. Ravichandra Taregala Irisuva Bujake. What is it? Is it a big load for the one who's carrying the entire universe to carry my little load on his shoulders? Bhagavan also says, keeps on saying, put your load on the Supreme One. You need to say you become a child. But Sadhuam Swami says, Tandai Madimel Varsei Ni Talarvuk Kidamum Taralamo. You are actually living on Bhagavan's lap. And he says, Parara Kada Kai Chachi Bedaleno. Why should I ask anything of anybody? And today we had the joy of meeting two devotees of Sadhu Om Swami, devotees of Bhagavan, of course, because of that. And they said, once somebody came and asked Sadhu Om Swami how to find out the self, or so difficult the path, everybody says this, and some problem that devotee was expressing to Sadhu Om Swami. Then Sadhu Om Swami said, see, there is the entire universe. This great universe is there. Then there is the Milky Way. Then there is the solar system. On that there is the earth. And then the earth there is India and Tiruvannamalai. And here, that which is the basis of this entire universe has taken a human garb and come and brought us to its feet and shown us the path. Will it not complete its task? What are we supposed to do? Just leave everything to him. Leave everything to Bhagavan. Don't worry about anything. He said, what is the path, Swami? I didn't know. I was a young man. I came to Swami. Be totally worry free, because Bhagavan takes care of everything. Be like a child on his lap. Don't worry about anything. If you don't worry about anything, and in another composition, Sadhu Swami says, if you first know, Unnai vida unmel kavale ulla perumal. Very beautifully, Nandakumar ji said, a child appears to be free of samskaras, appears to be free. And there will be relative differences in that also. We heard another talk by Dr. Dodrage Gowda in the Kannada session, where he says, child appears to be very free, very innocent. You people will love the child so much. But if you take a mirror in front of the child will start dancing, the child will start expressing itself to the mirror, standing this way and that. Then you know the identity of the child is very much there. Or you take a child to a toy shop. There may be differences, of course, there are differences from child to child. So we know that despite the innocent, there are samskaras still present. Whereas in a Jivan Mukta, there are absolutely no samskaras. Very many devotees ask this question sometimes. Is it not good to be just like children? Are we spoiling the children? Are we making them, giving them our values? To some extent, yes, but no also, because they come with some samskaras. Each child comes with a samskara, and there is a divine plan. But though the life goes according to that divine plan or our prarabdha, the Guru Shakti, taking us back to the self, takes us beyond all this. It is not a matter of being childlike sometimes and childish at other times. It's a matter of purely surrendered life. And that's why Kanakama would say that Bhagavan in Navamani Malai Actually, she and my father, they had an argument about it. And she said, see, Natarajan sir, Bhagavan has said in Navamani Malai, தாய் சிசுவு காற்றும் நிகரற்ற நலனுக்கு நிகழ்த்துவாயே. He has said to Arunachala, oh Arunachala, you have to give me that supreme good which a mother gives to an infant. Shishu, she said. She said, why has Bhagavan used the word Shishu? It does not mean child. It means a babe in arms. So my father said, is it so? Argument means he was not clear. Is it not being childlike? Then Kanakama said, no, even between a mother and child, the mother's love for the child is said to be the highest love, because of which only Bhagavan has said, even greater is your love than the love of a mother for a child. Why? Because of the absolute dependence of the child, the Jnani child, on this mother called the self, on this mother called Arunachala, Bhagavan's dependence, if we see. So, Kanakama said, a babe in arms. The mother also will give 100% to the babe in arms, because the babe in arms is 100% dependent on the mother. Now that's okay for a baby, because a baby literally cannot physically do anything, cannot take care of itself. But we see Bhagavan, actually whatever that verse says, we see in Bhagavan's life. We see that how he is a baby to Arunachala, how he is completely surrendered to that self, where there is not a single sankalpa rising, where there is not a single effort being made to achieve anything whatsoever, but allowing everything to happen from the sannidhi of the self, by the sannidhi of the self alone. And this is what Muruganar Swami is telling us to do. Says, get back through Bhagavan's, of course, Bhagavan gives us that overall picture. Some places he has corrected even Muruganar Swami, we found, to give us the absolute state only. Bhagavan never allows even the slightest stepping down from that absolute state. And Bhagavan's corrections are so beautiful. If we see, for example, his correction of the preface written by Sundaresh Iyer to the Arunachala Stuti Panchakam, where Sundaresh Iyer says, it is hoped that those doing Paranam of this will attain to the state in this, not Arunachala Stuti Panchakam, the Nool Tirat, the collected works of Bhagavan. It is hoped that they will attain to that state. And Bhagavan says, it is tinnam, it is certain. He has given the Supreme Court verdict. He has said, you can drop all your cares. You can comfortably drop all your cares and be like a child in the self. Because only if we realize, and again, the devotees today, they were quoting two songs of Sadhuam Swami, one song where they say, only when you realize that there is perfect justice, that's what Sadhuam Swami says in his song, perfect justice. எப்போது நீ அறிவாயோ மனமே அப்போதே சாந்தி அடைவாய். In Ramana's kingdom, adharmame illai. There is nothing wrong. There can be nothing wrong. That is a total faith. Why? Again, Sadhuam Swami in another song says, Unnai vida unmel kavale ulla peruman. He is more concerned about you than you yourself can be concerned about yourself. Why this total reaffirmation and establishment again and again that one can leave all one's cares and be like the Jivanta. It's only when all cares are dropped that one has the freedom to get back to the self. In one of his talks about Cow Lakshmi, Nandakumar ji said that Bhagavan says, drop all your thoughts. And he said, when I came to self-inquiry, I did not know about Ramana Bhakti. I had not traversed that path. I had not put my attention to it. But I later, while reading Kaulakshmi's life, I realized that just as Kaulakshmi could dedicate all her children to Bhagavan, I was able to drop all my thoughts, all my concerns, all my worries to Bhagavan as the self in self inquiry, because somehow, without my realizing it, by His very grace, I knew that He will be able to take care of all my worries. He'll be able to take care of everything that is my concern. So I did not hold any thought because he is taking care. I could drop the thoughts because Bhagavan within me as the self gave me this assurance. This assurance comes to us from the very self in self-inquiry, that Bhagavan, as Nandakumarji again said today, is the loving mother, the loving father, the Chinmayi who is completely taking care of us. When we recognize that and become the child within with absolute total faith in the self, with total faith in the self, which alone enables us even to hold a thought in the first place. Otherwise, what can we do? There is the capacity to do anything further, to act, not to act. If we are not able to even hold a thought on our own, it is all happening by the divine grace. The grace that is the self, the knowledge that is the self. And what is there to do except to enjoy that bounty? And Bhagavan also affirms. In Ramana Gita, he says, why do you worry? Because self-inquiry is the answer to every problem, every issue, every anxiety. In another recent interaction, one of the devotees was saying, yes, you are saying do self inquiry. But when I am facing some difficulty, I am worried about the solution for that problem. My mind does not go to self inquiry. Then our thoughts were taken by Bhagavan to his answer in Ramana Gita, where he says, Sarva klesha nivritti syat phalamatma vicharataha. The fruits of self inquiry are to dissolve all problems. So, should we take to self inquiry to dissolve a problem? Well, at least to dissolve a problem, it's okay if we take to self-inquiry. No matter what the reason is for, it is better if we take to self-inquiry for no reason at all, but for its own sake, for the fact that it is going to take us beyond every limitation. But even to get rid of a problem, instead of seeking some other solution, it is good if by that very grace we can turn to self inquiry as the only answer, as the only mother, as the only support, as the only boundless being, as the only one and only. Not, there is no trace of any duality in it. When one recognizes that there is nothing other than that which can be available to us, we may call it self-inquiry, we may call it Guru Kripa, whatever the name we give to it, that alone is. And they are not different from each other. And by that very grace, when we are able to see that alone is, then gradually the mind will begin to embrace self inquiry, the beauty and wonder of self inquiry, and that, of course, will in turn envelop all the doubts, all the questions, and swallow them with great love, revealing the great love of the self. Om Namo Bhagavate Sri Ramanaya.
Namo Ramanacentre.
Namo.
Namo Ramana Vaibhavji. Vaibhavji is.
Yes, sir.
Vaibhavji and Prathama, we can start the chanting.
नमो रमण भारद्वाज विश्वनाथ विरचितं श्रीरमण शतनामावलिः अपार सच्चित् सुखवारिराशे यस्योर्मिमात्रं भुवनं समस्तं गुहाहितं तं रमणं गभीरं चिन्ताविहीनं हृदि चिन्तयामि। ॐ महासेन महंसेन जाताय नमः। ॐ श्रीरमणाय नमः। ॐ गुरवे नमः। ॐ अखण्डसंविदाकाराय नमः। ॐ महौजसे नमः। ॐ कारणोद्भवाय नमः। ॐ जगद्धितावताराय नमः। ॐ श्रीभूमिनाथस्थलोत्थिताय नमः। ॐ पराशरकुलोत्तंसाय नमः। ॐ सुन्दरार्यतपःफलाय नमः। ॐ कमनीयसुचारित्राय नमः। ॐ सहायाम्बा सहायवते नमः। ॐ शोणाचलमहोलीनमानसाय नमः। ॐ स्वर्णहस्तकाय नमः। ॐ श्रीमद्द्वादशान्तमहास्थले लब्धविद्योदयाय नमः। ॐ महाशक्तिनिपातेन प्रबुद्धाय नमः। ॐ परमार्थविदे नमः। ॐ तीव्राय नमः। ॐ पितृपदान्वेषिणे नमः। ॐ इन्दुमौलिना पितृमते नमः। ॐ पितुरादेशतः शोणशैलं प्राप्ताय नमः। ॐ तपोमयाय नमः। ॐ उदासीनाय नमः। ॐ महायोगिने नमः। ॐ महोत्साहाय नमः। ॐ कुशादधिये नमः। ॐ शान्तसङ्कल्पसंरम्भाय नमः। ॐ सुचन्द्रशे नमः। ॐ सवित्रे नमः। ॐ स्थिराय नमः। ॐ तपक्षपितसर्वाङ्गाय नमः। ॐ पुल्लाम्बुजविलोचनाय नमः। ॐ चण्डिकासितहासश्रीमण्डिताननमण्डलाय नमः। ॐ चूतवाट्यां समासीनाय नमः। ॐ चूणिताखिलविभ्रमाय नमः। ॐ वेदवेदान्ततत्त्वज्ञाय नमः। ॐ चिन्मुद्रिणे नमः। ॐ त्रिगुणातीताय नमः। ॐ विरूपाक्षगुहावासाय नमः। ॐ विराजितचलाकृतये नमः। ॐ उद्दिक्तनयनाय नमः। ॐ पूर्णाय नमः। ॐ रचिताचलताण्डवाय नमः। ॐ गम्भीराय नमः। ॐ परमाचार्याय नमः। ॐ सुप्रसन्नाय नमः। ॐ अभयप्रदाय नमः। ॐ दक्षिणास्यनिभाय नमः। ॐ धीराय नमः। ॐ दक्षिणाभिमुखाय नमः। ॐ स्वराजे नमः। ॐ महर्षये नमः। ॐ भगवते नमः। ॐ ईड्याय नमः। ॐ ब्रह्मविद्याविशारदाय नमः। ॐ विमलाय नमः। ॐ दीर्घदर्शिने नमः। ॐ आप्ताय नमः। ॐ ऋजुमार्गप्रदर्शकाय नमः। ॐ समदृशे नमः। ॐ सत्यदृशे नमः। ॐ सत्याय नमः। ॐ प्रशान्ताय नमः। ॐ अमितविक्रमाय नमः। ॐ सुकुमाराय नमः। ॐ सदानन्दाय नमः। ॐ मृदुभाषिणे नमः। ॐ दयार्णवाय नमः। ॐ श्रीशोणाचलऋद्बोधस्कन्धाश्रमनिकेतनाय नमः। ॐ सद्दर्शनोपदेष्ट्रे नमः। ॐ सद्भक्तवृन्दपरिवृताय नमः। ॐ गणेशमुनिभृङ्गेन सेविताङ्घ्रिसरोरुहाय नमः। ॐ गीतोपदेशसारादिग्रन्थसञ्चिन्नसंशयाय नमः। ॐ वर्णाश्रममतातीताय नमः। ॐ रसज्ञाय नमः। ॐ सौम्याय नमः। ॐ आत्मवते नमः। ॐ सर्वावनिमतस्थानाम् आराध्याय नमः। ॐ सर्वसद्गुणिने नमः। ॐ आत्मारामाय नमः। ॐ महाभागाय नमः। ॐ मातृमुक्तिविधायकाय नमः। ॐ विनताय नमः। ॐ विनुताय नमः। ॐ विप्राय नमः। ॐ मुनीन्द्राय नमः। ॐ पावकोज्ज्वलाय नमः। ॐ दर्शनादगसंहारिणे नमः। ॐ मौनेन स्वात्मबोधकाय नमः। ॐ मृच्छान्तिकरसान्निध्याय नमः। ॐ स्मरणाद्बन्धमोचकाय नमः। ॐ अन्तस्तिमिरचण्डांशवे नमः। ॐ संसाराणवतारकाय नमः। ॐ शोणादृशस्तुतिद्रष्टे नमः। ॐ हार्दविद्याप्रकाशकाय नमः। ॐ अविच्युतनिजप्रज्ञाय नमः। ॐ नैसर्गिकमहातपसे नमः। ॐ कमण्डलुधराय नमः। ॐ शुभ्रकौपीनवसनाय नमः। ॐ गुहाय नमः। ॐ दण्डपाणये नमः। ॐ कृपापूर्णाय नमः। ॐ भवरोगविषद्वराय नमः। ॐ स्कन्दाय नमः। ॐ देवतमाय नमः। ॐ अमर्त्याय नमः। ॐ सेनान्ये नमः। ॐ पुरुषोत्तमाय नमः। ॐ श्रीरमणभगवते नमः। श्रीरमणाष्टोत्तरशतनामपूजां समर्पयामि। यस्थानोररुणाचलस्य पदयोः स्मृत्याजनिं प्राप्यत दिव्यानुग्रहसुप्रवाहविवश सादात्म्यभावं गतः निर्निष्टस्वगभीरनित्यतपसा लोकान् पुनासेकराट् तस्मै श्रीरमणाय ते नम इदं लोकोत्तरज्योतिषे। ॐ नमो भगवते श्रीरमणाय।
नमो रमणाय।
Namo Ramana, sir.